Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with our 78th episode of Book of Hours, our first run playing as The Artist, the B-Soap Journal. It's actually been a while since we read The Legacy, so let's take a quick look here and see what we're up with. It's been a few episodes. So Picasso, I'll give you Picasso. The artist came to Hush House to shape and share a history of primal, ultimate, unprecedented experience. But you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Bosque Wisdom. And the full description of the artist's data was a start. The Surrealist Manifesto, a step along the road, but only a step. The road goes nowhere unless it goes into the wood, and that's a road we can only walk in the dark. Wait, no, not in the dark, in blood. Hip deep in blood. Oh, shut up, give it to me, I'll write it. So we had a couple of things that we left on at the end of the previous episode. I did take a break in between. In fact, I got myself a cup of tea, and I quite literally organized part of my library. I actually have a small stack of books sitting beside me of just related to a project that I want to do in between. So if that doesn't put you in the mood for Book of Hours, I don't know what does. But we're going to be finishing off the Path and Pilgrim. We should be getting Mrs. Kill up to Heart 11, and that's so that we can go further up, take care of the Fallen Bells. That will mean there's only one more area to open up in the first sort of wing of the... Well, actually, okay, this is a tricky question, because one thing you could consider in terms of the wings would be you have all of these baronial period rooms, and then you sort of go into this Curia section, and then you have this solar section up here. So technically this could be the third of the areas. Now, it's also fair to say there's a bit more baronial waiting for us here, so it's a little bit tricky to sort of work out those distinctions. Obviously, your mileage may vary, but in terms of goals, you do unlock an achievement when you open up this room, so it seems a worthwhile milestone to talk about. So we won't necessarily be doing that on this run, but we have got Mrs. Kill up to the level that she needs to be, and then the remaining task that we have for our talk verb would be to talk to Lieutenant Arthur Thomas Moore, retired, about Sabazine. But the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we unpause the game, so let's get to work. I haven't really thought about what memory I'm keeping overnight. It might be better for me to hang on to the confounding parable, because the fact of the matter is, if I ever want to use a storm, that's almost certainly going to be one that I get, like a real storm that I get. So we'll see, but I don't really feel obligated to hang on to the storm right now. I think I'm going to take another round at the Sweet Bones. This is really just so that we can investigate things in the dispensary, but we have the money for it, so we might as well. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. So if we go up, we've read the spice scales, so if we move on, we're now on to the cranial tchotchke and the glinting cranial tchotchke. Sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately, and the skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. I hopefully left... Yes, I did leave a gap for that. Alright, so let's have a chat with Arthur Moore. Tutoring Sabazine. My visitor can teach me the rudiments of this enigmatic language. After tutoring you, the visitor will leave, even if they arrived on other business. So that's 3 minutes that they'll be occupied for. It might be... I think we'll have this done before the start of the next day. Not 100% sure, but feels like a reasonably good shot. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting about the Faust here, the more I think of it, so normally I hold off using something overnight, but another thing that's true is the longer... Like, so if I try and read this overnight, yes, I will be down the Faust, but it also means I'll be earlier in the day when I get the results. That may not be a hardship. So let's just take a quick look and see what we can read with what we have right now, like leaving aside any other, memory generation or anything like that. So bring in the Faust. I think Inks of Revelation is probably my best bet. So we actually need 3. Okay, yeah. So this would have worked if I didn't take up Lieutenant Moore. Well, I suppose depending on how much I want to risk things, I could make this work. But yeah, the big challenge I have right now is that I've got the memory site. Now, there's a couple of ways that this can work. This can still work for me, but I think it would just be better for me to use a proper, proper revelation memory or something like that. I don't really need to be going out on a limb on this, especially given the fact that I can just use the consider verb with the cranial tchotchke. So that's what we're going to do. Investigate the object. Oh, and we can get Mrs. Kill working on the fallen bells. Someone has smashed the headstalks of the bells so that they fell to the floor here. The stone is cracked beneath them. The noise must have been unbearable. One has fallen against the stairs to the tower top. A slight reason why I held off going into this room right away, but we'll get there, don't worry. So the intention of restoring this one was just so I could sneak in another study. Okay. Cradle tchotchke, all of us come to this condition in the end, but not all of us are fortunate enough to be lovingly buffed and fixed carefully to a stylish wooden stand. There's no sign of any cranial trauma. Rule that out as a cause of death. Oh, I should commit a memory. Okay, so it looks like I am stuck with the storm anyway. So, dream on a memory. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Does seem fairly late into the night to be doing this. So I could be... You know what? I'm going to save myself the money. No tuppence, no beer. I'm sure I just lost my nerve and that I would have been fine, but I'm not in that much of a rush to see the rest of the items in here, especially given that we haven't had... How do I put it? Like, I haven't... We haven't been exactly in a rush to, or sorry, we haven't been overwhelmed with like, oh, there's no books for me to read. Like there's plenty of things we can do with our elements of the soul. So, all right. So, bells, giver, teller, sure as tongue, Lady Janice, and Great Paycock are the names of these bells, though they're older than the abbey itself, and those names have certainly been corrupted over the years. By 1915, Sure as Tongue and Lady Janice were too cracked to ring, and the Suppression Bureau paid for them to be recast. Serena Blackwood's quid pro quo for the assistance she gave George Collars with his clock project. So the remaining room, the weird curse spire. 7 years ago, someone pronounced a curse here in the name of the sun and its many selves. This place is not the curse's target, and nor was I, but its poison fills the air around me. I should not enter here until it's cleansed. So this would take 12 lantern, so Reverend Timothy would be a good option for this. 12 moth, which technically we don't have on its own, however the barber would give us a hand in that situation, and we can align that with Trist. And then Sky is the slightly more difficult of the two because even if we got a Fisherman or Mr. Kill, they only provide one Sky. And then we've already talked about how difficult it is to get Sky Drink as well. So I think the most likely case here would probably be something a little bit more Lantern or Moth oriented. So not easy, but we don't necessarily sign up for easy either. Okay. Let's think about the day. I know I kind of have the option available to me for moving higher into the Kukurbit. I would be interested, though, in seeing how I can restore the Ruby-wise ruin. So let's actually grab the Arab there. I think Desires and Dissolutions should do the trick, yep. Now, if I recall correctly, we were also short on the flower. No, there we go, Fragrant Chalice. Okay, actually, if anything, the Fragrant Chalice is a little too much. Although that's not a hardship. And Fragrant Chalice in summer and autumn. Okay, so I seem to remember now what some of my plans were. So in the case of Fragrant Chalice, we do want to be spending the core picking that up. We actually have a couple of core available to us. So we'll start working on that. I also think I should probably go for some replacement vegetables. Now, stitching and binding should... Nope. No, it is just nectar. So that's kind of interesting. The effort still takes heart, but the knowledge requires nectar. I seem to recall you could use heart and nectar. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Anyways, orchids and narcotics. I'll go down to the garden, nourishing vegetables in summer and autumn. Gather in autumn carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. I suppose there is a question as to whether or not I'd like to bring Mrs. Kill in. There's arguments both ways, although let's start with the Ruby-wise ruin. There's absolutely no reason for me not to be making that right now. I think I will actually hold off on that because I can get the lantern that I need from a book. Yeah. I think I'm going to hold off on bringing in Mrs. Kill for now. We will see what the weather brings, though. All right, a storm. So I actually think that's possibly changed my mind. Well, let's take a minute here and think. So the only thing that this really has changed is possibly the sky consideration with Mr. Kill. And I think I made a note to that effect too. So what are we looking at here? So 1, then we'd add 1 from the Fost, and then we add 4 from the Storm. So that only gets us up to 6, and then 1 from the Tool. Now I suppose if we consider the T, so that brings us up to 8. So then that brings the question in terms of where does the 9th come from? Because I really don't think there is a sky food for us here. So then the question might be, is there a sky wood? I'm not really willing to sacrifice the furniture to see if that can do the trick. So unless we can find a special ingredient that gives us a high level of sky, I think it's fair to say we shouldn't be banking on that. Okay, so yeah, not too much has changed. I'm always tempted whenever I see this storm. So there's a slight argument for Mrs. Kill's involvement here, just because the storm has occurred naturally, as opposed to, through using an element of the soul, but I'm not entirely convinced it's the thing I need to do. On the other hand, a source of memories is always helpful. Okay, so we've got the Chandler's Wish, we've got a second glory, sevenfold slaying of the seven coiled, Nyx Abolix, 26 enticements, 7 torments, Scar in the Sky, deaths in their endeavors, can't read Vac. We will be reading Unhatched Hymns, but we're not quite there for another minute. So I think we know where this is going. We will use... Well, okay, you know what? I've lost my nerve, so I am going to talk with Mrs. Kill. We're not going to try and open up another room of the house unless it really just kind of screams at us, you have to do it right now. But we are going to bring her in for a chat, so Mrs. Kill's mood always improves when I drop by. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. We are going to... I'm going to resist the urge to follow or to use too many elements of the soul on side tasks. I know I made the exception for the vegetables and the fragrant chalice. That's largely to replace what I took up. I am going to set aside the tryst and the fete for explorations on Crowcross Sands and the moor. I guess it's anyone's guess in terms of what comes out of the Chandler's wish. Evoking Moth, Lantern, and exceptionally paradoxically the liminal and theoretical hour called the Chandler. Doesn't really tell us one way or another here, does it? Let's use what metal to get our revelation. And for that, let's read A Shape in Smoke. I will confess I am a little surprised is a revelation text. And because I find that surprising, let's read it at Ambrose's desk. Forge the work accomplished. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. And this is... oh, here we go. Sorry, I've got tea in a hand, so... oh, I should be making some money. Fixing and mending. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. So I'll confess, we're a little bit later on reading the book than I thought we would be, but everything's a bit later today just because the talk verb's been taken up with Lieutenant Moore. I might as well move Unhatched Hymns to the list here. We might be able to make the Mystery Grail work here. So we've got 9. Be a little tricky. All right, Ambrose Westcott's exposition on tobacco blending and the oracles of the pipe. The text is spotted with spark holes throughout. Westcott observes gnomically that a pipe might be said to manifest the red flower of the watchman's tree, for when lies are burnt, wisdom arises, and vice versa. So, don't doubt the system. We got a revelation out of that. So, we are ready to go to the reading room and read... Chandler's Wish. We do need to bring the mirror scope in, though. I can master this mystery, enough lantern to match mystery lantern. I don't think I will do Unhatched Hymns at the kind of the midpoint of the day. I think we'll save that for a separate day, but we'll also see where our various leveling takes us. So it does mean that we're going to be just sort of sitting, waiting for a result, but it's not always a problem to do that. If it leads to something interesting, then that's actually a good use of the time. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Now, I'm slightly tempted to bring back the Arab just because that can get me another Ruby-wise ruin in a little bit. So I think I will do that. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Alright, gather the scented blossoms of the fragrant chalice. A glorious globe of wine-colored flowers. So we'll set one of those aside. We might as well just replace it where it was before. We'll keep one in the inventory because we know we'll be using that soon. With Keeper Level Grail, Ruby-Wise Ruin is a precursor to the Sacrament Callicite. So that's good to know. Just I don't think we quite have a need for that level of Grail. We're really using this for the heart right now. It's carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. I've learnt enough to puzzle out books in this language, though it might be slow going. Sabazine, there is a history where Alexander defeated first the great knot of Sabazos and then the King of Kings. There is another history where, instead, he learned from them. How many more? If we curl our hands into the correct shapes, we may yet understand. So, a moth and lantern language. Both very positive features in my opinion. And yes, it does feel like a little bit of a waste, but really right now we're just sitting and waiting for the book to finish. Although I should be talking with Mrs. Kill. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. But right now the main show is the book that we're reading. If we had Sabazine a little bit earlier in the day, then Unhatched Hymns would be as well, but we're working with what we've got. Alright, better now. So, seems to me like we can still restore elements of the soul. We can convert it into money if it comes down to it. The reason I'm not checking out things in the dispensary right now is that I don't know if any of these will be relevant for leveling up whatever we learn from Unhatched Hymns, so I'm leaving myself the option for now, although the one thing we're not doing is keeping the Arab. I do want that to be a... I do want to turn that into another Ruby-Wise Ruin. Although, looking at what we have here, I do wonder if... now see, I don't have a Grail memory, but it would be interesting to see if I could get a Sacrament Callicite out of that. Anyways, brew Grail liquor. And we have more than enough time to make that happen. There it is and can be no tizzer, as Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. Okay, the Chandler's Wish, formula and instructions, invoking Moth, Lantern, and exceptionally, paradoxically, the liminal and theoretical hour called the Chandler. The author is anonymous, admitting only that they are one who is not yet nameless. The author makes a passionate argument that the hour named Chandler is in fact the oldest, even though he does not exist, because he is supposedly the culminating event of a plan that precedes even Grail and Moth. Where the Chandler has passed, the understandings of the Colonel and the Lionsmith will wrench open truth. Where the Chandler will pass, Moth will pass before him. So more Inks of Revelation, generally good news for me, although it is going to make things a little complicated to level it up, but I'm not going to complain about having powerful skills. But if we're trying to build on Foresight, we are starting to run out of shelf space. Oh wow, we're actually going all the way to 8 on this one. Okay, so this is going to require quite a bit of focus on my part. I'm going to write down my possibilities, in fact, because we might have to get lucky with some weather. Okay, so lantern. Oh, sorry, it's lantern and moth, right? Yeah. Moth doesn't help me though. So revelation, foresight, sight. I could probably try and do this from memory, but it's going to be a little bit easier if I just look at the labels. So impulse for sure. Satisfaction won't help. Revelation I already wrote down. Secret thresholds, no. Foresight we already wrote down. Hindsight doesn't help. Regret doesn't help. Confounding parable I don't believe has moth. Neither does intuition. Contradiction doesn't. Fear doesn't. Gossip I don't think has a moth. I think it's rose and grail. Storm doesn't, Solace doesn't, Pattern has Forge and Knock, Salt, I don't... Ah, man, Salt always throws me for a loop. Salt has Moon, it has Knock, and it has one other component that I can't remember. Earth Sign won't help, Guiling Melodies won't help, and Cheerful Ditties won't help. Wow, okay. Oh, but Bittersweet Certainty will. So, this... Okay, hang on. Name day riddle. If I'm not... Yeah. So there is a small possibility that I can't actually level this thing up except on a sunny day. Okay, so let me think about what I've got going for me right now. So I can make a name day riddle with 5 elements of the soul. I can get the remainder. Okay, it's gonna be tight, but I think we can make this work. So let's take our... I think we should take the storm in this case, actually, rather than the memory of the storm. So bring in the tryst, we take the storm. So the reason I'm bringing the storm rather than the memory storm is because the memory storm can last, whereas you can't take weather to bed with you, basically. So that, in this case, I'm just leaving my options open for the future. Oh, sorry, I'm also wrong. It's not just a sunny day, it's also a cloudy day. So Edict's Liminal would be what we bring in here. Yeah, okay, we have the name day riddle for sure. So that's going to take us 90 seconds. Next up, so I suppose technically I need to leave aside the whist for leveling up, although we can use, we could actually use the FET for that as well. So what I'm going to do here is I will read Glimmerings, and that's because we know that Mrs. Kill won't give us that. So right now the rest of the day is going to be spent on earning the elements of the soul that I need to get one level up. Again, it's a tight window, but we have 3 of the 6, so we're halfway there. I need 3... Oh, hang on. 1, 2. Yeah, I guess I only have the time to bring back 2 elements of the soul. So I'm kind of banking on Mrs. Kill delivering 1. Okay, well, there is one other thing that I can do to tilt the odds in my favor. It's to go to bed with a glass of water. Oh, nope. Serve appropriately. Pour out. Forge the work accomplished. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Okay, gossip doesn't help us here. Poured out. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink, while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. So definitely want to be on top of the sweet bones. Good news is I am going to get the third item that I need, no matter what. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. So any surplus we can get from Mrs. Kell. Actually, the one thing I can do is... Okay, you know what? As much as I would love to investigate something new, let's go for assurances here. And we'll do to hear those voices. I'd rather not risk making an assumption on what I'm going to get from something like the glinting cranial tchotchke. Okay, satisfaction didn't help. So what I'm really looking for now is impulse or revelation. Well, I'm either going to get both or I'm not going to get either one at all, so we will run this out a little bit later. I'm probably going to lose an element of the soul over the course of the day, but that's fine. To hear those voices, a Levinson prefigure, a copy of a painting that would not be committed to canvas by the real artist for 20 years. Kirchner, one of Levinson's favorite pre-subjects. Kirchner and Levinson fought in the Great War on opposite sides. There's no reason to believe Kirchner had anything at all to do with Levinson's death. So it seems a little scary here because we only have 2 of the 6 required memories, but the other 2 are showing up pretty soon. And in 20 seconds we'll have the element of the soul that we need. Alright, Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of Aniric irresponsibility and confined to the Cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of Aniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brankrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. And there's the Ruby-Wise Ruin. We'll just put that back on the shelf. Or not back on the shelf, that's actually a surplus that we got, but... Okay. Solace doesn't really help here. Okay, so we've got the core back. Now my preference would have been to keep the Faust for tomorrow, but I really don't want to be taking any risks here, so let's just get the books read and then we'll sort out elements of the soul as we need to tomorrow. What do I even want? There's lots of interesting books that we can read here. Let's read the Green Jasper Tablet again. I've already mastered this, but I could reread this and perhaps recall a memory. And then Revelation, we can read Light in the Inkwell again. Is this the way to the wood? But perhaps the wood is not a suitable place for a librarian. Okay, I'm trying to keep a little bit more disciplined in terms of the time that I'm doing the recordings here, so I will leave in similar circumstances. We're going to need to wrap up the rest of the day, but I think it's pretty clear where the rest is going. The big challenge here really is what do we do in the meantime as far as the memories are concerned. Do we hope for weather that will help us out? Do we sit on everything until we see an appropriate weather day? There's a number of different ways that it can go. If we do wind up in a situation where we're hanging on to Inks of Revelation and we're not able to use it until Numa, we have a few different options available to us to make the most of Inks of Revelation. So for instance, I could even use it to level up Sabazine. Not the most exciting use for these sorts of things. It really only helps you with committing things to the Tree of Wisdoms, but that is an option that's available to me. But all of that will be handled in another episode. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode, but until then, take care.